Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Yeah, let's get a round of applause. This is a good thing. Who would have thought a room full of addicts and people, friends of addicts, would come together like this and actually get along? That's an awesome opportunity. My name is Chris Iannotti, for those of you that don't know me. I'm the president and founder of Darkhorse Ministries. I just want to thank you guys, extend the gratitude for you guys coming into our house and making yourselves at home. I hope the food was okay. Everyone full? Can't eat tacos, right? So just a little bit, Darkhorse Ministries, we're new in this building here. We've been around for about 3 years in Southern Illinois. We're new in this facility here about 2 months now. We just had our grand opening actually last week. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to introduce a couple people to you that lead some of the meetings that we have here. Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we have Bible studies at 7 o'clock. And on Mondays, I don't see Aunt Gussie here, but Aunt Gussie, she leads Monday Bible studies. She's an excellent woman of God. She just laid back, casual as can be. There's a reason we call her Aunt Hippie. She is literally like a hippie. She's awesome, very cool lady. So she's here Mondays at 7 o'clock. I'm here on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock when I can be. If I'm not traveling for work, I'm here at 7 o'clock. We have a great crowd on Tuesdays. And then Wednesdays, Andrew Woolsey, if you can stand up back there, Andrew Woolsey. And we've got a great ministry called Occupy All Streets that he's kicking off the ground, and it's awesome to see the man he's becoming. Very good dude. And then we have Stephanie Boog over here. Stand up, Steph. So every Tuesday morning, we looked around before we got started here thinking, what can we do to open the doors of this place to be of some use? We see that there's some Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and there's some Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and there's some Celebrate Recovery meetings. We don't see a whole lot as far as activity in those arenas go, okay? And I'm not criticizing anybody or anything. I'm just saying we're going to go ahead and open the doors 10:30 on Tuesday, 10:30 on Thursday in the morning. I don't know a whole lot of drug addicts that have a job issue where they can actually have to worry about. If you're really bad, like I was, you're pretty free to come on a Tuesday or Thursday morning. So that's what we do here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So come on by every Saturday. We have church service here at 5 o'clock. We have, coming up next week, Pastor Brad Dexter from Family Worship Center. There he is. Awesome man. God has been something of a mentor to me for the last few years, and him and his wife Kelly are just awesome blessings to the community in general. So Brad Kelly will be here next Saturday. The Saturday after that, Brent Kelly will be here from Nashville, Tennessee, sharing his message. Ignite Ministries is awesome. If you've never been down to Nashville to check them out, make sure you do so. And then the following week, we have someone else that I can't think of right now. But anyways, y'all are free to come every Saturday, 5 o'clock, and join us, okay? So, as far as this evening goes, Crushing Epidemic, we all know Nick Morgan. Nick, I knew Nick before he actually started Crush the Epidemic. Great guy, always got along with him, thought he was a good person, and watching Crush the Epidemic start from its infancy to what it is today has been nothing short of an inspiration for us over at Darkhorse. Great guy. We started out in the beginning sending our addicted clients down there to Florida by him, and just another avenue for us to use. Just great work that they're doing down there at their treatment center down there in Florida. So we're glad to have you here, Nick. Thanks for coming. We're going to introduce Nella. Nella Rice Anderson is going to come and speak to you about her story as the mother of an addict. When she gets done, I'll share my testimony, and then Nick will share his. Afterwards, very, very important, okay? We have April Scales from SIH here. She's going to do a workshop on Narcan and naloxone training. She'll be doing it out there in the dining room. So make sure, we'll take a break after all the speakers are done. Y'all stick around, have some snacks, and check out the workshop. It's going to be very informational and very helpful, okay? So at this time, I want to welcome to you Miss Nella, and y'all help me welcome her with a warm applause.
Story of living with a loved one that's addicted. Before I start, I want to ask just a few questions. Do you ever feel like you're on a roller coaster? Do you ever feel like your life is out of control? I know that I did for 15 years. My loved one has been addicted for right around 15 years, and I got to the point that I was at the end of my rope. I felt like I couldn't go on any longer. And at that point, I was at work, and I did a search online, and I found Nar-Anon Family Support Group. And I read what they had to offer as a service, and I ended up sending my mom a text message saying, I found something that I think I need to go to. And they have a meeting in Dew Point on Tuesday nights. And right away she told me that she would go with me. Awesome support there. And the first time I went into a meeting, I didn't really know what I was getting into. I sat there and I heard other parents and spouses talk about what they have been through and their road to recovery. And I knew that this was something that was going to save me. And unfortunately, I work on Tuesday nights, and with my work, I'm not able to take off every week to go to the support group. So I decided after 2 weeks that I was going to get the literature, and I was going to start a group in Christopher, which is my home area. And I know that there is a need for it, not only up in that area, but across the nation. Now to tell you a little bit about my journey. For 15 years, I dealt with a loved one that started out just using marijuana, and it proceeded on to pills and heroin and meth. I can say right now, she's 8 months clean and is working. I'm very proud of her. But during times of active addiction, I would try to be a detective and determine where she was at, who she was with, what she was doing. It consumed my life. I would wake up in the mornings wondering what type of day it was going to be, what the roller coaster was going to be like. I would go to bed at night wondering how bad the nightmares were going to be, because I can tell you every night there was a nightmare. It got to the point that I couldn't sleep without my phone on, and the phone couldn't be just on the bedside table. It had to be right beside me, and most nights I laid with my hand laying on it. And with my job at the time, I worked a lot of overtime, a lot of 16-hour days, coming home to be able to sleep maybe 6 and turn around and go back for another 16. And I got to a point that I was exhausted. And my daughter was at my mom's one day when I came home, and they were like, just go to bed, she's here, she's gonna stay here. Turn your phone off. I went home next door, turned my phone off, went to bed, was asleep for maybe 45 minutes, and woke up in a full-blown panic attack, only because the phone was off, and I didn't know if she needed me. I called to my mom's house, and she's like, what are you doing awake? The first words out of my mouth are, is she still with you, and is she okay? And unless you've held your child in your arms when she's coming off of a drug, you maybe don't understand the constant worry and the constant fear. But let me tell you, that is the worst thing to go through as a parent. To go to sleep every night and wonder if it's the night you're going to get the phone call that she's being rushed to the ER, dying, or to get the phone call that her friends that she's using with have found her dead. And I have received a phone call that she was going to commit suicide. And I've had to make the call to the police to get them to her location to save her life. Luckily, her life was saved. And since that time, she's had 2 beautiful children. And she has had periods of up to 2 years where she has stayed clean. But like I said, it has been a 15-year struggle. But at this point, and I can say it's by the grace of God and her higher power, she is 8 months clean. Now let me tell you about Nar-Anon. Nar-Anon is a 12-step program. It is not a religious program, but it is a spiritual one. You work the steps, and you do rely on a higher power. Now, whether that higher power to you is God, or whether that higher power is something else, that is totally up to each and every individual. I can tell you that since working this program since last November, my connection with God has grown a lot stronger. I started the group in February in Christopher. We have had people come and go. We've had people come for just a few meetings, and they have found out the information that they have needed to know that they didn't cause the addiction. And that's one of the things that Nar-Anon will teach you. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. But we can care. And we do. We care about our loved ones. We are slowly building our group. In June, I was able to get a wonderful leader for Narcotics Anonymous to come in and start an NA group at the same facility in Christopher. So we have both groups going on the same night at the same time. Both groups now also, before the support group meetings, has a 12-step study going on, which I didn't know how the 12-step study would really benefit, but let me tell you, we started ours the 1st of September, and just delving deeper into the first step, it has really made my awareness of things more so. But I can tell you, at the point that I looked at Nar-Anon, I honestly felt that my life couldn't go on. And if you have ever felt that, I encourage you to please come and try a meeting. We have them in Du Quoin on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. We have them in Christopher on Thursdays at 7. I have pamphlets in the back with the information, business cards with the addresses for both locations. If anybody has any questions, please come back and talk to me. I can give you more information. I don't want to bore you all with the statistics, but I can tell you that if you have a loved one that's working a program, if you work a program, their recovery will be more successful. Thank you.
Give her another round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was awesome. I often think about everything I put my mother through during my addiction, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. She deserves a lot more credit than what I give her for staying by my side through all that stuff. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about my story. I won't drag it out. I tend to keep it simple. And I don't spend a whole lot of time glamorizing or telling glory stories about my using and my addiction. But it is part of the story, and you need to know the facts. So I'll just start with my childhood. When I grew up, I had grown up with my mother. My mother and father split ways when I was just a small baby, so I don't have any recollection of my mother and father being together or witnessing like a family atmosphere as a child growing up, you know what I mean? My dad was a Vietnam vet. He came back from Vietnam with a heroin addiction. And that addiction and that addictive type behavior just continued on throughout his whole life. As far as I know, still today. I'm not really sure. But my mother was young. It was the 60s, early 70s, so she was all about free love and peace and the hippie movement, which is cool. I get that. I respect that. But just her and my dad together. My dad, you know, my grandparents are off the boat from Italy, very strict, very hardworking people. My dad was one of 5 kids for my grandparents. So he was pretty rebellious, and make a long story short, they split up. I grew up with my mom. My mom worked 2 jobs most of the time. She waited tables and worked in restaurants to try and pay the bills, keep a roof over our head. We definitely weren't starving by any means. We got by with what we had. And that's all I knew, was growing up with my mom. She got remarried when I was 9 years old. And then when I was 11, they had another child together. So I have my half-brother. And man, I guess the emotions of that, just growing up used to it being just me and mom, and then here comes this other guy, and he was a great, great man. My stepfather, Andrew, Andy, as we call him, was just an awesome guy. I mean, he was the only real father figure I ever knew. But I rejected him because I didn't know him, and he wasn't my dad. And when the new kid came along, I felt kind of squeezed out. I felt like the black sheep. I felt kind of like the odd man out, like the third wheel. I was pretty resentful. Started acting out behavior-wise in school. 13, I guess it was, I tried smoking pot, started drinking with my friends. All my friends had older brothers. I was the only child between my mother and father. So I always looked up to those guys. I always wanted to be like them, and I thought it was cool when they drank and they smoked pot and all that kind of stuff. And so we did. Me and my friends were the entertainment. They would get us high or drunk and watch us beat up on each other and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we played sports, so I mean, it was good. I mean, it was a good childhood. I didn't see anything wrong with experimenting a little bit with drinking on the weekends or smoking pot here and there. And then LSD came into the picture. We started trying LSD, and I would go to school on LSD, and I thought that was great. Time went by really, really fast. But that slowly progressed. The kids in my school, when I went to junior high school, we were from one town. When we went to high school, 2 towns joined together. And the kids from that other side of town were a little bit rougher around the edges. This is in Chicago, the northwest suburb of Chicago, right by O'Hare Airport. It was almost like the closer we inched east towards Chicago, it was a little bit rougher. So gangs and gang affiliation was new to me when I started high school. And to say that I was intimidated is putting it lightly. When I saw these kids that were affiliated with these gangs and the attention that they got, I was attracted to that. I thought that was cool. And so I guess I was 15 and I joined my first street gang there in school. I was a sophomore in high school. And it wasn't long after that one of the kids I grew up with that played football together, we played baseball together, he actually helped me as far as getting to know everybody in that particular organization. He was shot and killed in front of his whole entire family. And that was a shock to the system. I didn't know anybody that had ever been shot or killed or even messed around with guns. So it rocked me to my core, and instead of it keeping me from going down that path, I went further down that path in a faster pace. I don't know why, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was out of revenge, if it was out of, I don't know. But it didn't take long before I started getting in trouble in school, getting in trouble with the law. I hit a teacher, I started using more drugs, and sooner or later my mom and stepdad said I had to go. It was time for me to go live with my stepdad, my real father, my biological father, sorry. And he lived on the south side of Chicago, so whatever I experienced on the northwest side of the suburbs was nothing compared to what I was walking into, and I was not prepared. The school that I went to when I was with my dad was predominantly Latino and black. The whites we were a minority in that school. It has nothing to do with race, this has to do with I was a fish out of the water, and I didn't know what was going on. So the kids in my neighborhood where I lived with my dad, were in a particular organization, and so I joined. It just seemed like the smart thing to do. In order to get to school, the route that we had to get there was through some pretty dangerous territory. These guys were not what I experienced back home with mom and stepdad. This was the real deal, where we carried pistols to school every day. Smoking pot and drinking was like, a daily thing now. It wasn't just on the weekends. We started to ditch school, and I was telling somebody this story earlier. I was new to the town. I was looking to buy some marijuana, and I saw a guy walking on the street covered in tattoos, and I thought he would be a good person to ask. And I was right, he was. But the deal that we made was he would take me to get some marijuana if I would give him a ride somewhere. And I didn't ask any questions, I just gave him a ride. And we ended up on the west side of Chicago, and we ended up in a housing project. And I watched him disappear into the project, and I watched him come back out, and he proceeded to smoke crack. I didn't know what that was, I'd never seen that before. And he proceeded to snort China White. I didn't know what that was, but I was willing to try. He was an older guy, he had some clout as far as the organization goes, and I automatically looked up to him. I thought he was cool. That turned out to be a daily habit that lasted for about 3 or 4 years, daily using heroin. Like I said, I didn't know it was heroin when I first started, and we were only snorting it, so it didn't seem too bad. Cocaine was pretty much accepted at that time around where I was from. The heroin and the crack, daily, repercussions started coming quick, where I couldn't hold a job. I'd been kicked out of high school 1 week before graduation for lack of attendance. I didn't do anything wrong, I just wasn't there. So, out on the street, and having to steal and rob or do whatever I had to do to get high. Well, I got tired of those consequences, and I tried to stop. I couldn't stop. I would physically get ill, and a lot of you in this room know what being dope sick is about. I was at a crossroads. It was either I continued down this path I'm on and continue getting high and doing whatever it takes to get high and saying forget everything else, or I quit, but I couldn't quit. And I kept asking for help. And everybody I asked for help didn't really have any answers for me. I started going to jail when I was 17. 17 years old, I caught my first felony and was charged as an adult for robbing somebody's house. The person whose house I robbed approached me and accused me of what I did, and I admitted I had done it. But the state still picked up the case and prosecuted me as an adult. So I'm 17 years old, sitting in Cook County Jail, looking at 4 to 15 years in a Class X felony, and dope sick. And if anyone's never been to Cook County Jail, don't start now. They don't care about an addiction. They don't care how bad you're suffering, or if you're hurting, or if you have broken bones, or if you're sick. They will leave you in a cell and let you puke, and let you defecate, and let you do whatever you have to do until you're done. It's taught me a lesson. I've never been back there since. But it was a rough lesson to learn. I just didn't do crime in Cook County anymore. They had a gateway program inside the jail that I went to, and I listened for about 90 days, and when I was released, I was on probation and went right back to using, and within 2 weeks I had 15 new charges. So not only did I have 15 new charges, but I had the violation of probation from the original case. So I was looking at doing some serious time, and I'll speed this up. Instead of going to prison, I asked the judge for help. I told him straight out, Your Honor, I'm a drug addict. I cannot stop snorting, shooting, smoking, anything I can get my hands on. I need help. And he sent me to rehab. It was in Lincoln Park, and it was a good rehab. It was interventions. They did a great job. I was either too young, too stupid, or I just wasn't interested, because I, again, walked away with nothing and ended up using before I even left treatment. They would let us leave the facility to go to meetings, and I got high on my way to a meeting. So I started to realize, like, something's really wrong here. Like, either I'm seriously sick and demented and I like destroying my life, or there's something that I can't fix that I need help with, right? It's pretty obvious that I needed help. And I wasn't able to do it, and a counselor wasn't able to do it, and jail wasn't able to do it. They weren't able to fix my problem. My third, fourth time, I don't remember how many times I'd been in treatment or how many times I had overdosed and wound up in the hospital. I can tell you the last time that I went, and the reason it's been my last time is because I heard a message it finally made sense. And the message was, when we talk about a higher power in these 12-step recovery groups, you hear a higher power of your own understanding. Okay? Now understand, please, this is just my experience. I'm not here to offend anyone or your beliefs or make you believe what I believe. I'm just telling you what worked for me. A guy came in the room and said, listen, the higher power of your understanding is not the doorknob, it's not the group, it's God. I feel that air gets sucked out of the room when I said that. Like I said, this is just my experience, okay? And when I heard that, I was intrigued. I wanted to know more. And so I grabbed onto that man with the desperation of a drowning man, and he walked me through the 12 steps. And it took probably a year and a half and a bunch of meetings and seminars and spending a lot of time just living life with this guy. But slowly and surely, I got to know God. And I got to know that I was loved. Even as a drug addict, even as the awful things that I did, God still loved me, and He had a plan for my future. He had a plan for my life. And that was all that I needed, was just a little bit of hope. That I'm not a lost cause. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life a broke down addict, homeless in the streets, overdosing, no family, no friends. And I guess that's the message. That's what we're here for today, is for hope. To know that regardless of where you're at in your walk, whether you've been sober for 10 years, 5 years, maybe you just used yesterday, there's hope, and there is a plan for your life. There's an answer for you. And I would just suggest that if you don't have that answer, that you reach out to someone that does, right? What do you have to lose? If you're still caught in active addiction, what do you have to lose? If I say I've got an answer, Nick has an answer, reach out, ask for help. It takes a lot of courage, I know that. But if we would chase after recovery, chase after sobriety like we chase after that bag of dope, imagine what could be done, the progress that could be made, you know? So I'm here to say, I found God. I now have a personal relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He has changed my life dramatically. Thank you. It's been 22 years since I've touched a bag of heroin, period. Now, that doesn't mean I've got it all figured out. I've still got my issues, okay? I'm still an active smoker, and God's working on that. A little bit at a time, we're chipping away at those issues. But, man, Darkhorse Ministries, what He's done with me here in Southern Illinois when I came here for a job 9 years ago, it was supposed to be a 3-month project I came down here for. It was one of my co-workers down here. This was a temporary project, and I wound up in Marion, Illinois. Like, what did you do? Where did you just send me to? I used to bartend and wait tables in downtown Chicago, like on the busy streets, and I came here and was looking around. But anyways, it was all part of God's plan, and I just didn't see it at that time. This is where I met Jesus on a more personal level. This is where I got saved and where I got baptized, and where the idea for Darkhorse Ministries and going out and serving others all happened here. And it's where I met my wife, where I had my youngest son. I mean, it's been a true blessing. And to see this now lets me know that this is exactly what He had in mind, and this is just the beginning. And you're all welcome to get on board and do something similar in your own community if you're not from here, or even if you are from here. Come and join us, come help out, get involved, help someone else, and take all the focus off of yourself. Stop beating yourself up and being so focused on you, trying to help someone else. And it's been a true blessing, man. It's awesome. That's really all I got. I want to thank you guys again for letting me come up here and speak to you.
How's everybody doing tonight? Good. My name is Nick Morgan, and I'm a person in long-term recovery from drug and alcohol abuse. My sobriety date is June 2nd of 2015, so I'm coming up on almost 3.5 years clean and sober from drugs and alcohol. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I don't say that to be better than anybody in this room. I don't say that to get praise. I just say that in hopes that somebody hears it and knows that recovery is possible. If I can do this, trust me, anybody in this room that knew me when I was in active addiction, anybody can do this. With that being said, what I do today is I travel the country, I speak in schools, prisons, jails, churches, conferences, anywhere I can bring a message of recovery and you know, when it comes to the schools, really educating on the disease of addiction and you know, really educate our youth, because I feel like that's the point that we're at nowadays. If you haven't watched the news or you don't know what's going on, there's a really bad opioid epidemic going on, and a lot of people are dying. You know, there's a lot of people dying, and it's in our community in Southern Illinois. It's everywhere. Everywhere I travel to and speak, there's that one person that walks up, oh man, our state's the worst. Like, no, man, it's everywhere. It really is. And this doesn't discriminate. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a cop, a teacher. I've helped every single one of those types of people get into a treatment center. So it really doesn't matter. With that being said, I just came from Florida to Maine to Philadelphia to Illinois to Indiana. I've literally just got back from Indianapolis. Tomorrow I go to Chicago. So I've been pushing, man. And I'm getting tired. You know, I really am getting tired. But like when I walk in a room like this and see like all these beautiful people, man, this is motivation for me to make a difference. You know, it really is. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do what I do today. A little bit about myself. I was adopted into a great family. My mom is here. My mom's a registered nurse. My dad is an orthopedic surgeon. So growing up, I had everything I needed as a child. You know, I had everything I needed. I had a wonderful childhood. It wasn't because like I was brought up to do drugs, because that definitely wasn't the case. Like I said, man, I got to go on vacation. Sometimes I wish I was like young again, so I could like go on vacation with Dad and stuff like that. You know, it sucks growing up. I remember being a kid, being like, I can't wait to be 21. Like, take me back. You know? You know, like I said, man, my childhood was great. And in like 3rd grade, my parents ended up getting a divorce, and you know, it wasn't like the best thing in the world that happened, but it happened. And for me, this is my story. It might affect you differently, but I used to use that as an excuse when I got older. The reality of it is, for me, I use drugs and alcohol because I love the way it makes me feel. You know, it wasn't because something happened in my childhood. It wasn't because my parents got divorced. It wasn't because I was adopted. That's not why I use drugs and alcohol. I love the way it made me feel. I love the way it made me perform at work. I loved, you know, the feeling that I got from that, being able to like be socially like acceptable, hold conversations with people. You know, it made everything in my life better temporarily. In 6th grade, I started smoking weed, hanging out with the kids that were drinking, doing messed up stuff. You know, like Chris was saying earlier, thinking that the kids were cool that were smoking weed and drinking Mad Dog 2020s in the park. Like, ugh. Just thinking about that makes me sick. And I remember getting alcohol poisoning at like 13 years old and having to have my mom had a babysitter come get me and carry me out of a friend's house. But I latched onto the chaos. Like I found